existence, and the four forms of birth. Because it is universal, is constantly continuing in a series, and is the fruit of the maturation of causes, there is no need to cling to a separate vital principle. The truth is that the term vital principle refers to powers or abilities of various kinds that result from action and that are supported by seeds that engender the eighth consciousness, and these powers enable form, mind, ik, to endure for a time.
Again, how do you, Sarvastivadins, know that the two attainments of unconsciousness, in samadhi, and the fruits of the meditative state of no thought have real natures apart from form, mind, and other dharmas? They reply, if they do not have real natures, then they would be unable to suppress mind and its activities and prevent their occurrence. We reply, if in the state of no mind there are separate, real dharmas different from form, mind, etc., that can suppress the mind, then when Ankh is formless, in the formless realm, there must be separate, real dharmas apart from form, mind, etc., named formless attainments, that can obstruct form. Since this is not so, how can your statement be true? Also, why are real dharmas necessary to suppress the mind? Objects of merely nominal existence, like dams and dikes, can impede.
In cultivating meditation at the stage of equipment, sambramarga, one becomes disgusted with gross, active states of mind and mental activities, and, as a result of putting forth a supreme solution, one makes mind and its activities become gradually finer and more subtle. When the mind is extremely fine, it perfumes the consciousness as retribution and creates extremely potent seeds of thought of disgust, etc. Because of these seeds of thought of disgust, etc., gross and active states of mind are for a time no longer present. The two samadhis result from dividing this state. Since the seeds are good, the samadhis are also said to be good.
Prior to the attainment of no thought, one seeks the result, no thought, and therefore the seeds created by perfuming provoke consciousness as retribution. This state is such that gross and active thoughts become inactive, and this state is conventionally called no thought. It gets the name retribution because it is founded on retribution li, the store consciousness. Therefore these three dharmas, of the attainments, do not really exist. Again, we ask, how do you know that the various characteristics of conditioned dharmas have a real nature apart from form, mind, etc.? They reply, because a scripture says so. According to this scripture, there are three characteristics of conditioned dharmas, and it continues to discuss them at length. We reply that, this scripture does not say that they have a rea, nature apart from form, mind, etc., so your proof is inconclusive. The grammatical, genitive relationship between characteristics and dharmas does not signify a different substance, because the substance of form and mind is identical with form and mind. You cannot clearly distinguish the substance of that which can characterize from that which is characterized, because the characteristics of conditioned dharmas, such as solidity, etc., are not different from earth, etc. If the characteristics of conditioned dharmas are different from the characterized substance, then the substance of the characteristics of unconditioned dharmas will not differ from what is characterized.
But, it is argued, if characteristics such as birth, duration, etc., and their substances always exist simultaneously, then all the characteristics will always function simultaneously. If it is claimed that the characteristics are contradictory, they cannot function simultaneously. We reply, since their substances are contradictory, how can they exist simultaneously? Also, the functions of duration, change, and extinction must not be simultaneous. The Sarvastivadin replies, the substance of characteristics and what is characterized always coexist. This must also be true of their function, because it has no separate nature. We reply, if itis claimed that their functioning requires causes and conditions, then the causes and conditions must not always exist. Moreover, your concept of birth, etc., would serve no purpose. If those things that are characterized are united with characteristics such as birth, then those things that are unconditioned must also be provided with birth, cessation, etc. It is not clear why the one should require them and not the other. Also, regarding the three characteristics of birth, duration, and cessation that supposedly belong to all conditioned dharmas, past and future times are neither present nor eternal, like illusory flowers seen in the sky, which do not exist. Birth is called existence, so how can it exist in the future, which does not yet exist? Cessation is non-existence, so it must not exist at present. If cessation is not non-existent, as claimed by the Sarvastivadins, then birth must not exist. Also, since cessation contradicts duration, how could they exist simultaneously? If duration does not contradict birth, how do they contain different times? Thus these theories pose dilemmas and are unreasonable.
The correct explanation is this: through the power of causes and conditions, dharmas that do not exist are brought into existence. They endure for a while and then revert to non-existence. To distinguish them from unconditioned dharmas, we conventionally attribute 4 characteristics to conditioned dharmas. When a dharma that originally did not exist now exists, we refer to this state as birth. When the dharma endures for a while, we refer it as duration. The change of the enduring dharma from earlier to later states is called differentiation. After existing for a while, it reverts to non-existence, and this state is called cessation. The first 3 states are states of existence and occur in the present. The last state is one of non-existence and therefore is in the past. But, let us ask, how can non-existence be a characteristic of a dharma that exists? We reply, what is wrong with indicating a future non-existence as a characteristic? Birth means that a present dharma did not exist previously. Cessation means that a present dharma will be non-existent later. Differentiation means that the dharma is not static. Duration means that this dharma is active for a while. Therefore, even though these 4 characteristics designate and indicate conditioned dharmas, they indicate differences in their state. Therefore, in accordance with their momentariness, we designate them conventionally as these 4 characteristics, or they can be conventionally designated as lasting for a period of time. The beginning of the dharma's career is called birth, later non-existence is destruction, born, an apparent series is called duration. Since the series evolves and changes, we speak of differentiation. Therefore, we conventionally speak of 4 characteristics.
Again, we ask the Sarvastivadins, how do you know that apart from form, mind, etc., there are really existing expressive entities called names, phrases, and syllables? They reply, because a scripture says so. According to a scripture, the Buddha acquired extraordinary names, phrases, and syllables. We reply, this scripture does not say that there are real names, phrases, and syllables apart from form, mind, etc. Your proof is inconclusive. If names, phrases, and syllables really exist apart from sounds, then, like color, etc., they do not express. If you say that sound can produce names, phrases, and syllables, this sound must possess inflections of tone, and this alone suffices to express, so what is the use of names, phrases, etc.? If you say that inflections of tone in sounds are themselves names, phrases, and syllables, and that they exist separately from sound itself, we reply that the modifications of shape and quantity in visible form would be different from form and have real, distinct substances. If you say that the inflections of tones in sound do not express, just as sounds of a lute string or a flute do not, we answer that like that sound, inflections of voice do not produce names, etc. Also, who says that the voice alone definitely does not express?
The Sarvastivadins reply, if sound by itself can express, then the sound of such things as wind bells must have the function of expressing, which sounds unreasonable. We reply that inflections of tone, just as with a flute, must not separately produce real names, phrases, and syllables. If only the sounds of speech can produce names, etc., then why not just admit that words alone can express? The Sarvastivadin asks, by what principle are you so certain that it is the words that express? We reply, how do you know that apart from words there exist separate entities that express? That words and expressors are the same, all humans and celestials know. He who grasps things that express apart from words must be crazy. The correct position is that in accordance with